Most people might say this band's best days are behind them, but I guarantee if you grew up in the 90s or you were around, if you throw on one of their songs, it's going to make you smile. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back, music lovers, especially my rock music lovers. Listen, Collective Soul is one of those bands that just showed up in the early 90s amidst the grunge movement, and they made their mark. And I think a lot of people don't realize the impact that they made, and the fact that they're not as talked about today just blows my mind. But in today's video, we're going to talk about Collective Soul and why I think their impact just may have made a bigger mark than what you realize, and we're going to talk about their legacy today. So Ed Roland, the lead singer of Collective Soul, the man that was front and center, guitarist, wrote most of the material, along with the other guys that were at Stockbridge, Georgia. An interview being done after the guys had already started to make a name for themselves when the reporter asked him, how does it feel to be an overnight success? Now, I find it funny because we don't know nothing about any band or artist before we start hearing their material, whether it's a hot single that comes out, whether it's a hot album that comes out, and that's when we know who they are. But like Ed Roland said, and I think he said it best, he said, you know what, our overnight success was 12 years in the making. So brothers Eddie and Dean Roland grew up in what they would describe as a strict household. Their father, Eddie Roland, being a Southern Baptist minister. Their mother, Lynette, being a teacher. She taught special needs students. Now, they said that until they were teenagers, they never really got into rock and roll music. Some of the earliest rock music they remember hearing were Elvis Presley and Jerry Lee Lewis, which are two of the greats, especially Elvis. Now, obviously goes back to time and decade, because, most people, you throw on something that somebody will tell you, 30 years you're elder, that this was hot in my time. Sometimes you don't hear it the same way they hear it. So without knowing that, most people won't give respect to what came before. But I think the way that they grew up and the music they listened to initially is very important in reminding yourself that respect the generations that came before you, and all these people that make it big, that we see as larger than life, they're just people like you and me. They came from the same humble beginnings most of the time. So thanks to Ed and Dean Roland's father, Eddie Roland, and him being the Baptist minister that he was, he loved music in the church, and that's where the boys first gained interest in playing the guitar and eventually learned how to play the guitar. So Ed Roland, after high school, moved up to Boston, Massachusetts. He went to attend the Berklee School of Music only for a year. After that, he came back home to Stockbridge. He landed a job at a local recording studio. Now, this local recording studio was big for that area. A lot of artists and bands went and recorded their music there. The thing was, and I want you to take a mental note of this, this is huge. You never know when those key moments are in life, when God puts you in the right spot. Now, for Ed Roland, him having this job there, he was able to record some of his own material after hours. So take note of that again, after hours. You got a job, you're fresh out of college, you love to play music, you work at a recording studio. If the only perk is, hey, I can use this studio after hours, that's the best damn perk you could have possibly had. And he had it. So the mid-1980s, Ed Roland had formed a band called Marching Two-Step. He had a guy named Ross Childress on lead guitar and a guy named Shane Evans on the drums. Now, these guys played all the way up until 1992 as Marching Two-Step. It was in 1992 that they left that band to go on and form a new band. The name of the new band? Collective Soul. Now, the guys say the name Collective Soul came from a concept from the classic novel called The Fountainhead, author Ayn Rand. Now, if you've never read that book ever in your life, or if you have read it, regardless, whether you like it or not, doesn't matter. If you're a Collective Soul fan, that's one thing you could absolutely thank that book for. So before Collective Soul even existed, and they were still Marching Two-Step, Ed Roland was sending demo tapes into record labels, just hoping somebody would hear it, like it, and bring the guys in and give them that break they were looking for. Again, year after year, he was getting the same result, same answer, no and rejection. The guys were playing conventions. They were playing all over, anywhere they could get in and play, just with the hopes of getting noticed. And there were people flying in to see him, record people flying in to see him. But in the end, nobody took interest. So this is where Ed Roland got very discouraged, and inevitably, he dissolved the band. He didn't want to do it anymore. And granted, we could all get to that place in life. I mean, how many times have you done something and got discouraged because you weren't getting the results you hoped for it? And especially if you were putting in a ton of work. I think we can all say that's happened to us. But you know what? we kind of know what happens in this story, but imagine what happened in your story or my story, the things that we did give up on. Had we pushed forward, had we got back on that horse, that bike, whatever it is, would the results have been different? I guess we'll never know. So after Collective Soul disbanded, Ed Roland spent pretty much the beginning of 1993, the first few months, in his manager's basement studio. Now, his thought process was, if he'd spent the last 12 years working hard to get noticed as an artist and it didn't work out, he wasn't going to continue that, but he loved music. So now he was going to work on trying to get his music published. He loved to write. So he started writing a whole brand new set of songs for a new demo. When he did that, he started sending it all over. And again, the same hopes. Somebody hears it, somebody likes it, and that helps him get the break he's looking for. Now, he did do one thing though. He sent the demo to Georgia State University. They had a radio station. They got his demo. And what happened next is one of the biggest things for Collective Soul. So before we continue the video, can you do me a huge favor? Please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Those are two things absolutely free that you can do for me that will help me grow my channel and continue my dreams of doing what I love to do, talk about music and share it with an audience. So again, please do those two things for me and let's move on with the video. So one of the songs that Georgia State University started playing on their station that Roland had sent in was the song Shine. Now we all know the song Shine. I mean, classic song, amazing song, one of Collective Soul's bests. Now it's funny to imagine that this guy, Ed Roland, was writing songs in a basement with the hopes of getting it published and possibly into another artist's hands and them performing it and putting it on their own record. It's just crazy how life works out. We don't always get what we want right away, but as long as you put in the work, eventually you leave yourself open for the opportunity of it happen at some time. And for Roland, this was huge. The song gained traction, a lot of attention, people loved the song. So naturally, he gets a hold of Evans, a hold of Childress, grabs his brother Dean, gets the band back together, so to speak. They get a hold of a longtime friend, Will Turpin, who played the bass. They bring him in. The guys were on, they got in the studio, they started recording, and they recorded under the name Collective Soul. So now the guys were in the studio as Collective Soul. They were recording with the independent record label Rising Storm. All they pretty much did was take Ed's demo tape that he had already recorded, they redid it as a group. They even took 3 songs that he had previously recorded when they were going by marching two-step. Now, listen, this would end up being their CD, Hints, Allegations, and Things Left Unsaid. When it was in completion, they did the same thing they did before. Ed was on the ball. He sent this all over the country to labels and radio stations. Again, the same result as before. Nobody was biting. But eventually, just like that station at Georgia State University, they caught on to the song Shine. They loved it and they started playing it all over the country, and eventually it started to stick. So it was February of 1994 that they were finally signed to a big label. Atlantic Records signed the band, brought them in. They took the CD that they had already recorded, they remixed it, they re-released it under their label, and the only thing they took off of it was one song. So one original song that the guys recorded from Ed's demo was taken off, but everything else stood pat and the album was a hit. I mean, Ed said it himself. That 12 years of hard work that led to overnight success was finally paying off. The guys said they were shocked. They couldn't believe it. It's amazing that you can have a goal in mind and your desire is no doubt, without a doubt, I'm going to reach that goal, and you got it set in your mind. That's the start. But when you actually achieve it, I can imagine the feeling is just absolutely amazing. And the guys, they finally got to feel that feeling after all that hard work. So now with the guys finally getting a taste of success, 94 was a huge year for Collective Soul. Now, one thing they got to do was play Woodstock 1994. Now, I've heard a lot of stories about the original Woodstock. I'm talking about the 1969. I've heard tons of stories. People that were there or people that knew somebody was there. Now, that as a rock fan, knowing what happened at the original Woodstock, it's a cool story to hear. Or stories to hear, I'm sorry, but every story I've ever heard from that, every documentary I've ever watched on it, it's like that is an iconic moment in rock history. So to have Woodstock 94, maybe to be the second coming was a high expectation of the original, but it was still great in its own. A lot of great bands, and Collective Soul was one of them. They got to play it. But not only that, 1994 also seen the guys open up for Aerosmith. You're opening up for Aerosmith, all that hard work to finally get an album. A major label signs you. You get it released. You're gaining traction. The feeling has got to be unreal. And now you're opening up for Aerosmith? I could imagine these guys had to be pinched. There's no way. They were definitely living the dream. So 1995, the guys from Collective Soul released their album self-titled. This album for me is the one that takes me back and makes Collective Soul so important to me. This album was huge, no doubt, and classic hits: December, The World I Know, Where the River Flows, Jail, Smashing Young Man. All those songs were the 5 singles released from that album, and all those songs, I guarantee, like I said before earlier in the video, if you hear a Collective Soul song and you were around at that time, you're guaranteed to smile. And every one of those songs will make you smile and has to take you back to the 90s. That was a great decade, no doubt. Look, when Collective Soul released that album in 1995, not only was that probably their best album in my opinion, that was a huge year in the history of American culture. I mean, you had the O.J. Simpson trial going on, which absolutely captivated the country, and the reason that was going on was absolutely horrific. I mean, tragic event, but they milked that thing for all it was worth. The whole time that trial was going on, you've seen it all over televisions. I mean, you had a crazy year. We just lost actor Matthew Perry. Friends and Seinfeld were 2 of the biggest shows that year. You had everybody running around doing the Macarena. 2 of the biggest and best films, in my opinion, ever. Apollo 13 and Braveheart came out that year. Not only that, that was the year we got Toy Story. The very first Toy Story, which is absolutely groundbreaking at that time. 1995 was a crazy year, and Collective Soul was a part of that. And that album, their self-titled album, was absolutely amazing. And the greatest song off that album, with the coolest music video that is totally 90s, has to be The World I Know. That music video, it makes you feel something. You can interpret the lyrics how you want from that song and basically apply it to your life and just think about life in general. What are you doing with your life? What is the world around you doing? And you just gotta take it one way or the other. Either you're happy in life or you're gonna get down. But there's no point in ever getting down, and that video absolutely symbolizes what life can be depending on how you take it. So the next 2 albums for Collective Soul were great albums. Again, their third album, Discipline Breakdown, which came out in 1997, did not fare as well as their previous 2 albums, but still a great album. But their 4th studio album, Dosage, in 1999, was a great album, and it has my second favorite Collective Soul song ever, the song Heavy, which I used to listen to all the time in junior high school. I love that song, and I love that album. Now, these guys right here, let's just leave it right here. So far, from when they started to that 4th album in 1999, where do we rank them? What do we have to say about Collective Soul's legacy? So let's look at the 90s defining era for Collective Soul, because that defines the band without a doubt, but that shouldn't just make them who they are. So I say this with all due respect. They've created a lot of music since their last album in the 90s, which was 1999's Dosage. I still love the sound of Collective Soul. It's still the same vocals, the same playing style. It's great. No doubt, the guys put so much effort into getting where they're at. So it's all respect. But it's all about the times, right? I mean, it's the bottom line. I mean, some bands, whether they came out of the 70s, 60s, 80s, 90s, doesn't matter. If they make a mark and stamp a decade or 2 or 3 decades, they'll forever be known for that as their prime, their best, whether they span 5 years or 40. But at some point, the music style changes, and just the way the music business is done changes. So no doubt Collective Soul came on at the right time. But again, times have changed. So I really want those of you watching this to drop in the comment section what Collective Soul means to you. Because I tell you what they mean to me. It's a big nostalgia thing. I mean, I can go back to 8, 9 years old just like that from hearing a Collective Soul song. I really want to know what they meant to you. What did they do in your life? What joy did they bring you? What happiness? What tough times did they get you through? I really want to know, because I think that's the importance of what they did in the early part of their career. They made a stamp on the music world, and they had to have done something for a lot of people. And just their journey to get to where they're at is a true testament of hard work and grit, determination, and not giving up. Sometimes we might stray away from the plan a little, but that's not giving up. And that's what Ed Roland did. He did not give up. He strayed away, made different plans, but in the end, he still had his end goal in mind. And eventually he got there. They got there, and they're there today. But again, Collective Soul's stamp on the 90s cannot be underestimated. It's huge, absolutely huge. So again, please drop in the comment section. I want to know what they mean to you. And again, thank you for everything you've done for me on this channel. Keep watching. I'm going to keep creating great content. There's so many great stories out there. But until next time, take care of yourself, take care of your family, and go for your dreams. Until next time, I'm out.